Lisa Richardson gives us a look at what happens when rural Missouri gets ready for Washington.
It's a quiet country town, about to play host to the man second in charge of this country. Vice President George Bush arrives in Mountain Grove Monday afternoon. This farming community intends to be ready.
Kids are real excited about going down to the square, and I think the main reason for their excitement is because they're going to be so close to the actual goings-on the bandstand.
And so will the kids in the high school choir. While these young musicians tone up, their elementary counterparts are finishing up some patriotic posters. Posters that will appear in store windows on the square. Everyone's talking about the visit. It was 1915, the last time a vice president was here. That's when this old bandstand was first dedicated. Today, the building has a new floor and a new paint job, among other things. These folks are proud of the old structure and take good care of the 70 years of Ozark history it symbolizes. History Vice President Bush will be introduced to next Monday. Lisa Richardson, KY3 Action News, Mountain Grove.
The White House says town his second visit in the past year. After landing at Springfield Regional Airport, Bush quickly departed for Mountain Grove and the rededication of a bandstand on the town square. I travel with the Vice President and have more on his day here. 2:30 on schedule. Air Force Two and the Vice President arrive at Springfield Regional. In a switch from the norm, a national public official is not coming to Springfield, but to a smaller town nearby. Springfield is just a place to greet local officials and park the vice presidential plane. Ferried by Army helicopter to Mountain Grove, Bush is met by the man most instrumental in bringing him here, fellow Republican Gene Taylor.
Dorothy. How are you? So nice to see you.
With the arrival of the Vice President of the United States of America, we still have time for a little bit more music.
Waiting at the Mountain Grove City Square, the school band, singers, and about 2,000 residents of this Wright County town. The Vice President, using many of his boss's themes, spoke of patriotism.
I'm glad to be here, where people believe in the values that have made this country great: family, faith, discipline, hard work, community spirit.
The basics in education.
We advocate putting values into the classroom so that our children learn the difference between right and wrong. Our teachers need to teach our children not only to read and to write and to think, but to help our children develop the proper values to guide them through life.
This was billed as a non-political visit, but it's hard to distinguish politics from official visits sometimes. When the Vice President leaves Mountain Grove, he goes to St. Louis tonight for a $1,000 a plate fundraising dinner. In reality, George Bush is often running to try and be the man who replaces Ronald Reagan. For KY3 Action News, I'm Tony Beeson.
Officials estimated the crowd on the Mountain Grove Square.
Today, the stated purpose was to rededicate a bandstand on the town square, but there were constant reminders that Bush is running for president in 1988. I followed the Vice President from Springfield to Mountain Grove. The Vice President aboard Air Force Two landed in Springfield, but the trip really belonged to Mountain Grove, so the stop at Springfield Regional was for the purpose of parking the plane. Army helicopters were waiting to ferry the Vice President some 60 miles to the east. George Bush and entourage in one, we and the Secret Service in the others. Even inside the darkened confines of the Chinook 47, most of the Secret Service continued to wear those ever-present sunglasses. And it was contagious. On the ground at Mountain Grove, the Vice President first greeted the man responsible for bringing him from Washington to rededicate a bandstand in a town of 4,000, Congressman Gene Taylor.
How are you?
Dorothy.
How are you? So nice to see you.
Minutes away, surrounding the Mountain Grove Town Square, some 2,000 waited to see the highest public official to come here since 1915. Many arrived several hours early, waving flags, listening to high school band music and singing. The town was closed and schools let out early for the visit. It was an exciting time for most of those gathered.
A rural town like this, you know, this boys got quite a kick out of this. They may decide to run for office someday, you can't tell.
When George Bush did arrive, his 15-minute speech tapped into the heartland of America, touching patriotism, virtue, and family.
I'm glad to be here, where people believe in the values that have made this country great: family, faith, discipline, hard work, community spirit.
And a hint at the focus of the Bush campaign.
Inflation has been brought to its knees, and we have cut taxes, but we still have so much more to do. We've got to get federal spending under control and get that federal deficit down.
The vice president pressed the flesh for a while before leaving. Then it was off to St. Louis for a $1,000 a plate campaign fundraiser. Tony Beeson, KY3 Action News.
From a motion picture, but it's the town square in Mountain Grove. No, not an ordinary day. You don't always see policemen standing on the roof or Secret Servicemen checking your every move. Military helicopters don't usually fly over the square either. This was Vice President George Bush's day in Mountain Grove.
I'm glad to be here where people don't go around apologizing for the United States of America, but stand up for our country.
Bush proposed a nationwide campaign to bolster educational standards in the wake of some frightening statistics.
It's a crime that 13%, fortunately not true in Mountain Grove, I'm sure, but 13% of today's 17-year-old in this country are functionally illiterate.
Well, they turned out in big numbers for this celebration for Vice President George Bush today. The question is, will that translate into votes in the 1988 Republican primary? On that matter, a lot of these people are undecided.
I'm a Democrat.
So who do you like in the presidential race?
Gephardt.
Yes, I'd vote for Bush.
Why is that?
Well, I just think he'd make a good president.
I think he's a real good, honest man.
But there are other honest men running too, aren't there?
That's true.
But he came to Mountain Grove.
But he came to Mountain Grove, yeah.
Democrats and Republicans alike showed off some old-fashioned, nonpartisan Ozarks hospitality. They sent the vice president off with an American bald eagle and a beautiful quilt. In 1988, a lot of votes would make the Ozarks trip a complete success for the presidential hopeful. Joe Mooney, News Team 33.
Karen, it was really a bit of